Warning, this guide features weak 1 strats. Better strats can and will be found if they haven't already, so be mindful. Hi guys, and welcome to a Hector Lecture Guide to the fight M11S. This is the Tyrant. Before we begin anything in this fight, be aware there are 2 very similar but not quite the same sets of waymarks going around right now. These are the Toxic Friends waymarks, and these are the Kindred waymarks. They are very, very similar, but for one mechanic using the wrong waymarks and the strat that associates with them can get you killed. So make sure you've got your waymarks correct. For this fight, you're going to need light parties. You'll also want clock spots. Standard clock spots work great, and you'll use them boss relative. You'll need spread positions for a mechanic early on, and these can be used for other mechanics as well. Use them relative as well. The fight begins with Crown of Arcadia. This is a raid wide. Immediately afterwards, the boss will cast Raw Steel Trophy and start to pull out either an axe or a scythe. If they pull out an axe, the tanks will stack together for a tank buster that they're sharing, and the party will spread. If the boss pulls out a scythe, the tanks will spread, and the party will stack instead. Here we see axe first, so the tanks stack together with mitigation, and the party spreads. Had the boss pulled out a scythe instead, the tanks would split up for their tank buster, while the party stacked. These are conal cleaves. The boss will now cast trophy weapons, and we're going to get 3 weapons spawning in the ground. This is always each of the 3 weapons: scythe, axe, and sword. The boss will cast Assault Evolved and face one of the weapons at random. This will be the first weapon activated, and from this point onwards, they will always go in clockwise order from this first weapon. These are the same mechanics that you saw in normal mode, but they come with an additional twist. The sword is still going to be dodged to the inner cardinals of the boss, but we need to split into light parties at the same time, as 2 line AoEs for light party stacks go off. Group 1 left, Group 2 right. Scythe is still a donut, but we're also going to get targeted with cleaves at the same time, so we split into our clock spots. These will only target alive players, so if anybody's dead, you won't get doubled up. Finally, the axe is an out, but also a party stack. The boss will now cast trophy weapons again, spawn 3 more weapons in the triangle format. But before this begins, the boss will cast Void Stardust. This is 3 puddles followed by stacks or spreads, so we just start north, bait the puddles together clockwise around the boss, and then look to see if it's stack or spread. The boss will face its first weapon at this point. If it's stack, you just stay together in the middle and take the stack. You can cheat towards the first weapon if you want to. For spreads, you can either YOLO these spreads, or you can use the exact same spread positions you used for axe spread and the tanks for scythe spread at the very beginning of the fight. Up to you how you do this. However you resolve it, pay attention to the weapon the boss is already facing and deal with that mechanic. Here it's an axe, so we go out and stack. Next up is scythe, so we split into our clock spots, boss relative. And next is sword, so we split into our light parties. Group 1 left, Group 2 right. We now stack behind the boss for 3 more puddles and the opposite of what we had before. If we had spread first, it would be stack and vice versa. Here the group knows that they had stack first, so they're going to split off because they know they're going to spread next. Just like before, you can either YOLO these spreads, or you can use the same spreads I showed before, but rotate them towards where the boss is now positioned. We get a Crown of Arcadia raid wide. Next is Dance of Domination Trophy. The boss will pull out a sword, and after several hard-hitting raid wides, very fast one after another, we get this pattern carved into the ground, and partner stacks on either all supports or all DPS. This pattern here, if I overlay the AoEs, leaves 4 safe spots, 2 in melee range, and 2 on a far wall. This is the only pattern you get, but it can be rotated towards any of the cardinals. To be able to figure out where we send each pair, find this upside-down cup here, and treat the top of it as your new north. Group 1 will go left facing this, and Group 2 will go right facing this, with tanks and melee staying in, and healers in range going to the wall. Get to your safe spots, and the AoEs will telegraph for a brief moment, giving you time to adjust if you're slightly off. Afterwards, boss will cast Raw Steel Trophy again, and pull out the opposite weapon from the beginning. If they pulled out axe first, this time it will be a scythe. Next up is Cherub Dystopia. This is not a raid wide, it does no damage, but it will drop everyone to 1 HP, so there's no need to heal anyone up before this. Afterwards, definitely heal them up. Now we get ultimate trophy weapons. The boss is going to spawn 6 weapons one at a time. This is always going to be the 3 different weapons, and then the 3 different weapons again, but the order in each of those 3s is totally random. These weapons can now go either clockwise or counterclockwise, and you can tell immediately from the first weapon. If it's clockwise from C, it's going clockwise, but because this sword is counterclockwise from C, we will be rotating counterclockwise. We position for the first weapon, the sword, in our light parties, as the second weapon spawns. We deal with our sword, and now I'll pause for a second because sword into scythe is the hardest combination for many roles. You have to be very fast, and if you're a tank or a range, especially if you're far away, like R2 in this case, you're probably going to want to cast sprint before you do this. Position for the second weapon. And now from the third weapon onwards, each of these is going to drop a tornado underneath when the boss finishes their attack. Just be aware that about a second or two after the tornado appears, it's active, and walking into it will send you flying in a random direction and probably kill you. The boss will now jump to the fourth weapon, the fifth weapon. It's all repeats from what we saw earlier, and then the final weapon will always be at true north. There will be 4 tornadoes now, each of them roughly at a cardinal, and we're going to send everyone out to fixed positions to bait 2 cleaves off of each tornado. The boss will start a cast of Immortal Rain, but only a tiny bit of the way into that cast, the cleaves go off. So make sure you're positioned so that you don't actually bait any into anyone else. Tanks and melees, you can immediately gap close after your hit, the tornado disappears instantly. Immortal Rain would transform the boss into its new form, and we get one and only, which is an ultimate raid-wide attack. Mitigate this. Now that we're in the new phase, we get some new mechanics. Great Wall of Fire is a tank buster. It hits twice. It's meant to be a shared tank buster, leaving a vuln on the nearest player, and it leaves an AoE underneath you need to dodge. If you want to deal this with both tanks, have main tank in front for the first hit while both tanks use cooldowns, dodge clockwise, and have off tank in front for the second hit. You can also have one tank just take both hits with invuln, up to you. The boss will now cast Orbital Omen. This is what looks to be a very complicated mechanic. Portals spawn in the north and the east in pairs. After the third portals appear, the boss will cast Fire and Fury and lock in place where they're facing cleaves that will go both in front and behind the boss, only leaving their sides safe. If we look at the Fire and Fury AoEs, you can see the safe spots from those relative to where the boss is facing. These will go off at the same time as the first line AoEs from the portals. And after this first set goes off, it's fast. The Fire and Fury in the first set, the second set, the third set, and the fourth set. All you have to do is dodge, but finding the safe spot can seem tricky. Here's a cheap way to make it really easy. Thank you to Violet Stardust, who is who I first saw this from. After the second portals appear with their lines out of it, the boss will cast Fire and Fury, main tank, keep the boss facing perfectly north at this time. Everyone's going to go into the same quadrant as where those 2 lines from the second portal appear. This will always be in melee range. Get into that quadrant, and make sure you're not getting hit by the section of the Fire and Fury going through where you are right now. If you're positioned here, you are guaranteed safe from the first hit, both the first portals and the first Fire and Fury. Diagonally from this is guaranteed safe from the second hit. And back where you started is guaranteed safe from the third hit. So simply start here, dodge diagonal for the first hit, and then straight back. This works every single time, really quick and easy, just need to get the timing right. Meteorain is next. For Meteorain, you're going to send 2 players into the middle underneath the boss because the nearest 2 players are going to bait these meteor markers. They're going to drop meteors on themselves shortly. The other players are positioning in the northwest, ready for a line stack. For the 2 meteor players, send M1 northeast, M2 southeast. Always these positions. This line stack is a wild charge, meaning the nearest players are going to take more damage, so we make sure our tanks are in front for this. The line stack and the meteors go off at the same time. Note that the meteors dropping gives a physical vuln to those players, meaning they can't take another set of meteors for the rest of the mechanic. Speaking of, immediately send 2 more players in this case it's the healers, because they're also going to be baiting meteors. Now, 3 things happen at once. We get 2 portals on random cardinals. One will tether to the northern meteor that spawned, and one will tether to the southern meteor that spawned and try to destroy them, like you saw in normal mode. We also get markers on the 2 nearest players to the boss, and we want those on the healers. They're going to drop more meteors. And we get a line stack on one of the other 4 players. Have your tanks positioned to pick up these tethers. Main tank should always pick up the tether tethered to the northern meteor, and off tank should pick up the one tethered to the southern meteor. You need light cooldowns to be able to survive each of these hits, but be aware that these hits do not cleave. Your healers who baited meteors, H1 will always go northwest, and H2 is going to go a little bit further southwest. You cannot drop 2 meteors too close or they will explode, so make sure you're just far enough away. Everyone else is going to take the line stack in the northeast. That's because it's still a wild charge. The first thing hit is still going to take extra damage, and if it's a player, they'll die. So we want the first thing hit to be the meteor instead. It's going to take the extra damage for us. All 3 of these things go off at roughly the same time. The meteor you've hit with the wild charge will start to explode, but you can just walk out of this AoE. Finally, send your ranged in to make sure they're the 2 nearest players, as they're going to bait the next 2 meteors. And everything repeats here. Tanks pick up their tank buster tethers. For the ranged meteors, R1, which should usually be your physical range, send them all the way to the southwest corner as it's the most movement. R2, just nice and melee range in the northeast. The line stack is once again behind the meteor to protect them. There's no more meteors to bait, but there's 1 more line stack and 1 more set of tethers. Main tank always takes the tether tethered to the northern meteor, and off tank the one to the southern. And the rest of the party just stacks nicely behind the final meteor in the north. Now, the reason we've done it in this exact pattern is because we need 3 meteors lined up for triple Tyrannulation. Melees can stand just until the first hit goes off, and then everybody needs to be behind all 3 meteors in a line to survive the attacks. Afterwards, the boss will cast Flatliner. This does raid-wide damage and is going to knock you over towards one of the platforms. You're welcome to stand in what looks like a line AoE. It doesn't hit for more damage or anything. It just means you'll be closer to the boss when you land. Send group 1 left, group 2 right. When you get there, we're going to stay roughly in pairs, ready for Majestic Meteor. It's because when this finishes casting, we get 4 2-person knockback towers, 1 in each corner. 4 portals will spawn either on the north and south edge of the platform or in the middle of the platform, and you also get 2 more that are either north or south, just sending a line AoE straight up 1/2 of the platform. Lots going in at once. Let's break down how we're going to do this. First off, the towers you soak are fixed for this first one. Simply send your takes and range to the north towers, your melees and healers to the southern tower. Within the tower, what you do depends on if you have a tether. If you have a tether, you need to stretch that tether. You need to make sure you land opposite the portal that you're attached to. So in this case, R1 and off tank need to get knocked to the opposite platform to stretch their tether. If you have a tether that's already kind of stretched, like the other 2 tethers, like R2 and M1, don't do anything. You're fine. Stay on the same platform and get knocked on that platform. If you don't have a tether, never get knocked across. This is what's sometimes referred to as no buddies, because you're not going to follow your tower buddy. You're going to do your own thing based on what you have. The towers will resolve, and you should end up with a 4-4 split. 2 tethered players and 2 untethered players on each side. Immediately, send your untethered players into the hitbox and have 1 position more north and 1 position more south. This might resolve itself quite naturally, and sometimes you might have to adjust to each other. For the tether players, also make your way towards mid, but stay out of the hitbox and cross your tethers. The boss will cast Fire Breath, and markers will get baited on the 4 nearest players. We want this to be the untethered players. They're going to get targeted with line AoEs at the same time as the tethers resolve, and you can't get hit by 2 things or you're probably going to die. Immediately after these are baited and you see the markers appear, everybody stacks in the middle. We're going to get 3 sets of puddles, and we're going to break off into pairs for this. Tethers, you're going whichever side you have to cross your tethers. Untethered players, this is why one of you positioned more north and one of you positioned more south to naturally have a side that you're going to go to. Second puddles, note that these all need to be baited really tight against the middle gap. Third puddles, and now we think about where we're going to go to resolve the mechanic. Be aware that each platform has a half that is completely unsafe, as seen by the line going through it, so we're going to avoid that. If you are a tethered player, you are going to go just outside of that, all the way on the north or south wall. That's going to be the best way to make the most room for the other players. If you are untethered, so you're one of the marker players go to the waymarks, and you're always going to go to the outside corner of your waymark, the ones nearer to north or south. If you position perfectly in these spots, the tethers will stretch. The tether AoEs will just barely avoid any of the players with markers. This is the tightest possible pattern, and even then, the outside corner is still perfectly safe. And the line AoEs baited on the boss towards the Fire Breath players also are going to avoid hitting anyone else. When you resolve all of this, well done. Now do it again. The only difference this time is, unlike before where we were in our light parties, now we're all mixed up, so whichever quadrant you just resolved the mechanic in, that's the tower you go to. Otherwise, everything is exactly the same. Be aware some party finder groups, especially those labeled Kindred, might use a conga line to assign their towers at the very beginning of this. For this, you line up in a conga line from north to south, and then when the tethers appear, you want one player with a tether and one player with a non-tether in each tower with this version of the strat. This just makes it a little bit simpler after the knockback to figure out which non-tether's going north and which non-tether's going south, but personally my group found this kind of unnecessary and preferred the fixed towers. Entirely up to you what you decide to do. However you decide to resolve the mechanic, when you finish up, you'll once again be in a specific quadrant. Hurry in towards middle at the end of the second set, but stay and still remember which quadrant you came from. That's going to be important in a second. The boss will cast Massive Meteor. This is a 5-hit shared stack, one on each platform. Make sure you're near middle, as the healers might both be on the same platform at this time. After 5 hits, you'll see there's already towers that have spawned. This is why you remember what quadrant you just came from. Go to the tower that was in the quadrant you just finished off in. The boss will cast Arcadion Avalanche, and look at which way the boss is facing. Just like in normal mode, that platform's about to be destroyed, so if you're on that platform, adjust so that you'll get knocked to the other one. When you land, hurry towards the middle of that platform. The boss is going to lift up one of the platforms, and they're about to slam it back down on the one you're on, just like normal mode, but with a much shorter telegraph. So now we're going to pay attention to some cues. As soon as you see one side dipping, that's the side you can dodge towards safely. Alternatively, when the boss turns around, the way they turn around is the unsafe side. So they turn towards A, we're getting away from that side. Run towards the correct position, and avoid the giant AoE. Afterwards, there's a Crown of Arcadia raid wide to heal and mitigate through, and we transition back to the original stage. We get another Great Wall of Fire Tank Buster, another Orbital Omen exactly the same as you saw before, and a Crown of Arcadia raid wide, before the final major mechanic, Ecliptic Stampede. For this one, send all of your tanks and melees into the middle of the boss, send your healers and ranged out in intercardinals like this. When the cast finishes, you're going to get 2 proximities in 2 opposite corners, and you're going to get 2 markers on 2 of the 4 furthest players from the boss. It could be 1 range, 1 healer, or both range, both healers. These players want to split up into the 2 safe corners, 1 in each corner. Right now, the safe corners are 2 and 4. If it was 1 ranged and 1 healer, the ranged always goes north and the healer always goes south, but here we have 2 ranged, and so we're going to adjust to the nearest corner that's safe for us. Our 2's heading to 2, and our 1 will adjust across to 4. Don't go all the way to the corner. Instead, go all the way on the north-south wall and align yourself with the B and D waymarks. Everyone else stacks nice and tightly under the boss. Everybody's now getting puddles. The ranged players that are out baiting are going to get persistent fire puddles, while everybody else is just puddles like we saw before that we're going to walk out of to avoid. After the explosions go off, the puddles begin. The ranged players are going to bait theirs sort of smushed against the north and south wall to keep it out of the way for later mechanics. And everyone else is going to be in the middle, first puddle in the middle, then move north, and then rotate clockwise around. The puddles middle go a little bit faster than the ones on the outside. After 4 fire puddles on the wall, the ranged need to make sure they don't cover up the corners, so they're going to move in towards north and hug really tight against their fire puddles. The players middle, after their 6th baited puddle, will see some towers have spawned. 2 tank buster towers and 2 2-person towers. There are 6 of us in the middle right now, so the tanks are each going to go to 1 tower. We're we're going to send both of the melees to one of the two-person towers, and whichever healer's in range or middle, they'll take the last tower. To resolve this, we stick to a priority. Main tank will look northeast and clockwise to find their tank tower, same for the healer and the range pair. Off tank will look northwest and counterclockwise, and same for the melee pair. Find your respective tower, and resolve those as the last fire puddles get baited on the range that are out. Now, 4 players, what seems to be 1 player per tower, is about to get tethered. They need to stretch these tethers out while everybody else who's untethered hides middle. When stretching these out, you just need to make sure you've agreed if you're rotating everyone clockwise or everyone counterclockwise. I'm going to show PF standard clockwise. The tethers get all stretched. The players that are in middle, you want to pre-position loosely in sort of like a square formation, with 1 in each intercardinal. You're doing this inside of the hitbox to avoid the attacks, and you're just going to have to use eyes because it's random which 4 players will be in there. Each tether gives a fire vuln to the player's hits. Be aware that the boss has already been casting either 4-way fireball or 2-way fireball. 4-way fireball is 4 AoEs baited on the nearest player. These should be taken as pair stacks. The way to best resolve these is to have your 4 inner players just slide to the outside edge of the hitbox, and the other 4 players need to make sure that they are further away but stay at their intercardinal. This will shoot off the 4 line AoEs in intercardinal directions, and they'll all be shared as 2s quite easily. If instead, after the tethers go off, we've gotten 2-way fireball, same idea, but this is now 2 line AoEs baited at the 2 nearest players, and these are meant to be shared by 4 players each. Collapse to east-west, making sure that the inner players are still the 2 nearest players in each line stack, but only 1 player in each is inside the hitbox, so you don't accidentally bait 2 the same way. We have a Crown of Arcadia raid-wide, and that's all that's left is the soft enrage. Heartbreak Kick is going to be the tower that we saw in normal mode, but we're going to get 3 of them. The first one hits for 5 hits in 9 seconds. Second one is 6 hits in roughly 11 seconds. And the third one is 7 hits in about 13 seconds. You can resolve this any way you want to, but just to showcase a way that my group did it entirely with tanks. We had our main tank take the first one entirely with their invuln. For the second one, which goes a little bit longer than an invuln, both main tank and off tank used some light cooldowns to survive the first hit, and then off tank used their invuln for the rest of these. This means you can't invuln the earlier Great Wall of Fire, but it's not too hard to take with cooldowns. Finally, for the last one, tanks soaked all 7 hits together with literally everything that they've got left, as well as any party mitigation you've got. Just a suggestion, don't have to follow it, but something that worked for us. When all 3 Heartbreak Kicks are done, it's time for a Heartbreaker. The DPS check on this fight can be very tight in week 1 gear, so hopefully you'll manage to make it past it. Can't kill the boss before it's out? It's game over. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed.